Hey, welcome back to Business 101, and we are about to release module number 5 to you. Module number 5 is one of those modules that's very near and dear to my heart because it's a module on the topic of management. I've spent a great deal of my career in private sector business in management and executive leadership, and I think this is possibly one of the more important, or perhaps the most important module in this entire Business 101 class, depending on sort of how you're wired, what your career aspirations might be, what you would like to do with your life as you continue on in your life and future career. Now, why do I say that? Well, when I say the word management, for many of us who are perhaps just getting started in our career, maybe you've just had 1 or 2 or 3 jobs, so you're early on in your career. When I say the word manager, many of us will think of, well, manager, that's that dude that made my life miserable. That's that guy that was always kind of riding me about showing up late or leaving early, or always had to make sure I was taking care of processes and doing things by the book, right? And so many of us think of managers as sort of that necessary evil, right? That makes life miserable, but at least looks like he can't get around it, right? Well, what I want you to consider in this module is an entirely different way to look at management. And I think that, quite frankly, and I'm very serious about this, I sincerely believe management may be the highest and most honorable calling in all of business. I really do. Now, you may be saying, what the heck? What's he talking about? And allow me, consider this. If you are a manager, you have the opportunity to make perhaps the biggest influence on your employees of anyone in their life. You will have more impact in their life than their husbands or wives. What? How is that possible? Well, think about this for a moment. You'll see them for more hours in the week than their own spouses will, right? And also consider you will have control and influence over their income and over their career, 2 things that normally their spouse doesn't have any control over or any influence, right? So you really do have the ability to have some real influence in people's lives. In fact, I would say this. You remember in Module 1, I gave you sort of the formula for one of the most important equations in business. Remember that? I told you maybe you ought to get it tattooed someplace on your arm or something, right? Profit equals revenue minus expenses. Remember that? Well, in this module, I give you maybe the biggest adage or proverb for you to remember in business. What's that? People don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. I'm going to repeat that. People don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. Think about that for a moment. If you have a job that sort of pays your bills, but, it doesn't really float your boat anymore, but, all right, you kind of like the people, you get along with your boss, guess what? You'll probably find a way to stay there an awful lot longer than you think you will, right? But if you have a boss that makes your life miserable, you will find a way to get out of Dodge as quickly as possible. People don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. And for those of us who have ambitions and aspire to lead others some point in our future, how can I make sure I'm not a bad boss? I'm not someone who people want to leave, right? That's some of the things we'll talk about in this module, right? In fact, we will show you a couple of examples of how, in very practical ways, the way you lead people is going to have a tremendous amount of influence in not only their life as an employee, but also the lives of the customers who will come in contact with those employees. It even goes further than that. You will affect the family life of those employees. How is that possible? Just by the way I manage? Yeah, think about this. Studies show that if you have a parent who works a little too much, they love their job, but they work so many hours that maybe they miss a few t-ball games and they miss a ballet recital. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, maybe you're that type of a person, or maybe you had a parent who was that kind of a worker, right? Guess what? The research shows you're probably going to end up okay. Your kids are probably going to end up okay. But if you hate your job, that is very closely related. It is statistically correlates with your children becoming bullies at school. Yeah. If you hate your job, the way you come home every day, frustrated, angry, mad, depressed, that's going to affect everyone around you and your kids, who many times are just not old enough to know how to really respond well and maturely to some of these kinds of things, right? It's really tightly correlated with kids becoming bullies at school. In other words, the type of manager that many people become has an enormous amount of influence in other people's lives, even further than they might ever imagine. For that reason, I think this is one of the most important modules in this entire class, especially for those of you who aspire to lead at some point in your career. Well, there's an awful lot more in this module than just that, but as you can tell, I'm kind of excited about this module. I hope you will be too, all right? I hope you get a lot out of it, and again, welcome to module number 5.